In the basic definition of the word, legacy means something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor from the past. The honoree of the Armenian Genocide Education Legacy Award not only is an individual who carries the memory of the past, but they themselves have also built a legacy in their own right and are a living legend. This year, we are delighted to recognize Dr. Stephan Astourian, who is highly deserving of this recognition. I'd like to now read a few remarks from some of the scholars we have in the room today with us about the impact that Dr. Astourian has had on them and on academia. Professor Astourian, whom I first met at a conference more than a decade ago, but where work I am familiar with long before, remains an inspiration and stands out as a role model. We honor ourselves and our history when we honor a person like Professor Astourian, Dr. Khachi Muradian. I congratulate my friend and colleague, Stephan Astourian, for this very much deserved award. His many years of research, writing, and teaching have made a very important contribution to the understanding of the genocide and Armenian history in general. Dr. Levon Marashlian. I have known Professor Stephan Astourian for a long time when we were both students at UCLA, and I have always admired his determination and perseverance. From a hardworking and overachieving student, he grew to become the pillar of the Armenian Studies program at UC Berkeley and the highly respected scholar of Armenian history. And now, this very deserving award. May this award lead him toward his future endeavors, especially in Armenia, and much needed improvement in genocide scholarship. Dr. Rubina Khaironian. Until his retirement in July 2022, Dr. Stephan Astourian served as the William Saroyan Director of the Armenian Studies program at the University of California, Berkeley for over 20 years. As its founder, he worked tirelessly to set the foundation of a full-fledged quality academic program focused on contemporary Armenian history, politics, language, and culture at one of the most renowned universities in the world. Through this role, and in his capacity as an associate adjunct professor in Armenian and Caucasian history in the Department of History, Dr. Astourian provided thoughtful and meaningful instruction to university students on topics in history, comparative genocides, and diaspora studies, in addition to the Armenian language, Armenian literature, and culture. I know this firsthand as I was his student in 2016 during the Genocide and Human Rights program presented by the Zorian Institute in Toronto. Throughout his career, Dr. Astourian has published a number of articles about the origins and historiography of the Armenian Genocide, Armenian, Ottoman, and Azerbaijani history and politics, and current issues relating to Armenians in the homeland and the diaspora. He has engaged in countless collaborations with scholars in the field and has contributed to filling a gap in academic scholarship. His work has brought the Armenian story to light and serves as a credible source for future historiography. On September 27, 2020, the government of Azerbaijan, backed by Turkey, dramatically escalated the conflict with Armenians in the Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh. The Armenian community worldwide was devastated, yet activated to do whatever possible to raise funds, spread awareness, and ensure recognition of these crimes. Dr. Astourian did not hesitate to join this effort. As part of the Zoravik activist collective started by Dr. Lisa Gudasarian, Dr. Astourian worked with her and provided weekly updates on the volatile situation in Artsakh between October 2020 and November 2020. During this time, he also participated in various conversations and panels to bring awareness to the questionable approach of the international media's coverage of the war. Without a doubt, Dr. Astourian has established a foundation that will continue to grow, thrive, and inspire a countless amount of young scholars worldwide who will carry the legacy he has established. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Stephan Astourian.
Well, very nice words, thank you. First, I would like to thank the Armenian National Committee of America, Western Regions Education Committee, for selecting me to receive this Armenian Genocide Education Legacy Award. I don't know if I deserve it, but I certainly appreciate it, and I'm honored to join the very select group of distinguished former recipients of this award. I am also happy to see here old friends and dedicated individuals with whom I worked in the past, for instance as a member of the first and second, then called Usumnagan Chorut, of Board of Regents, and that includes Dr. Alice Petrosian. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but it seems that all things have kind of like a beginning. So does my interest in the Armenian genocide. And this short talk is devoted to that beginning. You see, historians can write about genocide as a phenomenon, its causes, its stages, its organization, its main actors, and so on. But they will never be able to write about the specific experience of its victims, because the human reality of a genocide exceeds its explanation. And Dr. Mouradian did a remarkable job trying to reach that depth of depravity. You know, in the Syrian deserts, by the way, my paternal grandfather, I found out a few years ago, was in the death camp of Meskene. So, I would like to introduce you to three human beings, ghosts today, that I cannot forget. All three were, so to speak, lucky, really lucky. They survived the Armenian genocide. First comes the old woman I used to call Tata Kohar or Auntie Kohar. We weren't related. And her husband Suren. They were the only close acquaintances of my stepfather and step-grandmother. My mother had newly remarried, and I must have been around 11-year-old at that point. One day, while visiting us, Tata Kohar said, "Come, my boy, I want to show you something." And she opened the upper back of her dress to reveal a deep scar, perhaps 10, 12, 13 inches long. She had been stabbed when she was 5 and somehow survived. Tata Kohar suffered from psychosis, more precisely delusions of persecution, hearing voices, imagining that the neighbors were persecuting her on purpose. Then came my real uncle, Tonton Yervant, the husband of my mother's older sister. A kind, helpful, almost childlike man. He grew up as an orphan because both of his parents had been butchered to death in front of him during the Adana massacre of 1909. He probably suffered from some kind of bipolar disorder, but then I am not a psychiatrist. During his manic episodes, he would go on irrational buying sprees, he'd get agitated, and that cost him a lot, by the way. And my spouse, who is here, was witness to his filling a glass of water for my daughter Nanar, who is also here, then a small toddler. He filled and emptied it 13, 14, 15 times, perhaps to make sure that the water and the glass were clean. By the way, my first article dealing with the Armenian genocide in 1990 was dedicated to these two persons. And then came my step-grandmother, Meme Manu, we used to call her. We shared a living room, a small living room. I would sleep on a folding bed. During the day it would be folded. She was from Çankırı and had witnessed all the Armenian intellectuals being deported and walked through Çankırı. She married at 14, had 2 boys by the age of 16 and a half, and then her husband had been conscripted by the time the second boy was born. That was the end of her normal youthful life as a woman. She survived with the 2 infants, building ovens in Bulgaria along the way to her miserable refugee life in Marseille. Soft-spoken, always smiling mildly when seeing me, never complaining despite her physical conditions. And then there was that silence about the past, despite all the time we would spend together in that room, and it was the silence of the dead. I will never forget her looking at me from the window of my parents' bedroom while I was taking a taxi to go to Nice airport on my way back to LA. She knew this was the last time, and I think I did too. The presence of one past was ending. When I think of these countless witnesses of the crime, the book title of one of the pioneers of genocide studies, Dr. Leo Cooper, comes to my mind. The pity of it all. None of the works I have read, seminars I have taught on comparative genocides, and academic lectures I have given about the Armenian genocide will offer you a glimpse, just a glimpse, into the genocidal abyss, like the sad fate of these 3 lucky human beings. Today, Armenians, not unlike victims of other genocides, are facing a problem. I probably belong to the last age group to have grown up with these ghosts from the past. The new generation, however, is cut from them. They will never see Tonton Suren's emaciated face and really dark brown skin, perhaps baked by the sun of the Syrian desert. And they will not live with the memory of their gaze. This is where educators, especially pre-university educators, play a crucial role. It is incumbent upon them to teach where racist, exterminatory, and imperialistic ideologies lead. That is mass death. And beyond explaining genocide as a phenomenon, I hope they can have at their disposal appropriate materials to give their students a sense of what I will call the human factor, the human dimension, how genocides were experienced at an individual level. For sure, we all owe a debt of gratitude to the outstanding teachers being honored here today. We also owe an immense debt of gratitude to those who led the foundation for Armenian genocide studies and or fought denial at a time when these appeared hopeless. I am talking about the generation of the 50s, 60s, and mine, 80s, 90s, when denial was all over the place and we were laughed at when we attended conferences. We should first and foremost remember somebody who has been essentially forgotten but is the real foundation, and he needs to be commemorated one day, Father Krikor Grigorian. We need obviously to remember Vahakan Hovhannesyan, Richard Hovhannesyan, and some of his students, Dr. Rubina Pirumyan, Levon Marashyan, I think he is here. Vakram Shemmasyan, I don't know if he is here. And then some key non-Armenians, Israel Charlie, Leo Cooper, Ellen Fine, who supported us at a time when we were being despised. At the beginning of my talk, we agreed, even though I actually didn't ask for your opinions, that all things have a beginning. But do all things have an end. For instance, the Armenian Genocide. I leave you with this question at a time when genocide denial is still flourishing in Turkey and genocidal rhetoric proliferating in Azerbaijan. A country where criminals and war crimes are extolled and kids are brainwashed in schools into hating Armenians. This is a country where a glorious officer, Ramil Safarov, who courageously, during a NATO program in Hungary in 2004, beheaded Lieutenant Gurgen Markarian while the latter was asleep. Now I believe that's an act of courage, and this guy is celebrated today as an Azerbaijani hero. Literally celebrated. I read Azerbaijan. I know what I am talking about. Finally, the fight against genocide and genocide denial should obviously be based on genocide studies, especially comparative genocide studies, but also education and advocacy. This is where, obviously, the Armenian National Committee of America and its Western Regions Education Committee has been doing more than its fair share with the latter two fields, advocacy and education. Last paragraph, remember, one cannot be defeated easily unless one is already mentally defeated. This applies to competition, this applies to elite soldiers, to a good fight. Your presence here is not just to honor some educators, including myself. We are small links in the long chain leading to truth and justice. Each one of us does her part, and we complement one another. There is a beautiful song by François Hardy, which starts with the word "On est bien peu de choses." A lifetime comes and a lifetime goes. Your presence here actually is not just a tribute to the honorees today, it is proof that you continue honoring the ghosts I mentioned earlier on. Thank you.